maybe if we can go back in time a little bit, just to understand a little bit about your history, because you mentioned that you took a very engineering approach to solving this issue, really, which is really to understand the underlying problems and then
Yep.
kind of figuring out solutions that were pragmatic enough to kind of solve it. And maybe we can kind of walk through, if you could share maybe a little bit of your story as from wherever you would like to start. If you want to start from your time in the Air Force and
Sure.
then
Sure.
your engineering career, like how do you think that shaped the way that you both govern the city and then also maybe also your life in general, that entire background that you have?
Yeah. Okay. So, interesting story. I am a bit unusual because I started off in the military college system. And back in those days, in the early 70s, not too many people that went to military college that looked like me. Let me put it that way. It was a very Caucasian type of institution, right? And I excelled. I wasn't great at the military side in the first year because I had no background. I wasn't a cadet or anything like that. Academically and athletically, I had that side of it, but maybe not so much the military side. As I tell people in all, and this is a true story. My very first day, and then they go attention, and I hear everybody go bang, and I sort of slide my feet together, and I tell people, within 2 minutes I passed out. I didn't know how to stand to attention. But so I did come from a military college system. Graduated from Royal Military College in Kingston, mechanical engineer, first class honors. I got a scholarship. I did my master's in England in aeronautical engineering. So I'm aerospace engineering. I won the prestigious British aerospace thesis prize. Actually, I won the prize for both my research thesis and my design thesis. So, like I said, academics was pretty easy to me, but I was very pragmatic engineer. And then I had to serve time in the military because I owed time when I went to Royal Military College. But I was very successful even in the Air Force. I got promoted in minimum time right through the ranks, lieutenant, right up to lieutenant colonel. I was 32 years old as a lieutenant colonel, unheard of. And I decided that at that point in time that because I was an engineer, I could never make the top of the military, the chief of defense staff. You have to be an infantry guy or a pilot or a ship driver, as I call them. That's the way it is, and or an artillery guy. An aerospace engineer would never be chief of defense staff. But it's interesting because even when I went to staff college in Toronto, that's where all the senior guys go, and then you're going to be promoted to general ranks. I went there, and I was the engineer, and yet I was the top of my class there also. So, but I decided I had a great offer to go to a civilian company, an aerospace company, and they hired me on as the manager of engineering. And within 3 months, I was the director. Within 8 months, I was the vice president. And a year later, they actually sent me off to MBA, an executive MBA school, and said, "We want you to be the president now." But then I got headhunted away by another aerospace company, and then I did really well at that aerospace company, and then I got I got headhunted to the United States, where I was the CEO of a very large aerospace company, a second largest private aerospace company in the U.S. And then after I was finished with my contract there, I came back to Canada, and I was the vice president and general manager of Spar Aerospace. So here in Canada, I did really well with them. L3 acquired us; they kept me on, and I became a corporate VP of L3 Canada, and I did so well, and our stocks kept on splitting all the time. I was able to retire when I was 49 years old. It's almost 20 years
Wow.
ago. 20 years ago, believe it or not. And so I did sort of retire for about 8 months, and but that wasn't me, and I ended up owning my own consulting company. And what I specifically did is I did strategic planning and more importantly was I did performance metrics. You can't improve anything unless you can measure it. So that was extremely successful, too successful. In fact, my company grew so fast that I couldn't. It grew way too fast. And the big problem is that every time we went to see, these various companies for the contracts, uh, they didn't want any of my partners involved in it. I had to be personally involved in it. So, and I just went, this is nuts. I'm working more, harder now than I ever worked in a corporation. So I was successful in it. I kept it, I maintained it, and then I sort of retired a second time. And then and the only reason I did that is because my daughter moved over here to Victoria, and she wanted mom and dad to move there because I was living in Kelowna. That's where I retired, and so I did come back to Victoria. I am actually from here, and so I came back, and I ended up buying three small, franchises basically. And the third one wasn't actually a franchise; it was a something that we started up it, and my son-in-law was running it all. And unfortunately, my daughter and my son-in-law decided to go back to the oil patch because my daughter's an engineer also, and they went back to Shell, and so I got stuck running them all, which is interesting because I lived the life of the corporate, and you had your own HR, your own payroll, you had all that, right? But when you're a small business owner, you're everything. And I just knew enough to have that hands-on experience, but we were extremely successful, believe it or not. And thank God we sold it all off before COVID because I said, this is not what I want to do. I was having too much fun volunteering in the committee. I've been on everything, you name it. I even ran the junior football team here. I was the president of the West Shore Rebels, 2016. That's the very first year that we went to the national championships.
Wow.
Yeah. And the funny story behind that one is people says, how did you turn around that team? We went from last to first in 1 year. And I says, it's pretty simple. I don't have a secret formula. I split the organization up. I says, you know what? I'm not a football guy. I can't coach football, but I'm good at the business side. So I split the team up, the organization into a business element and into the football operations. And I had a person for each. And then what I did for the business side, I hired, made sure we hired some really good coaches and good staff, good recruiting of players. And on the business side, I said I did the same question. I says, "What's the best team in BC?" Well, it's the Okanagan Sun out of Kelowna. Huh. So I called the president up, and I kept, he laughs about this too. I kept on calling him. I was calling him every day. Well, what about this? What about this? How do you do this? And then I went out and saw him. And then he says, Doug, here, this is how you do it. This is the how to. And he says, if you're successful, the league is successful. So these are young men that get recruited right into the CFL, right? So you either go the university route or the junior
Hmm.
football route. And so, yeah, I just took that and we organized ourselves. We used those guidelines. And the ironic thing is when it came to the BC championships, guess who we met? The Okanagan Sun. And we beat them.
Yes, yes. Way to go. Way to
so,
go.
so no, that's I've been very fortunate. I'm really noted here because of how I turned around the Chamber of Commerce. I took it from a red operation into a black operation. So we went from it's very successful and it's thriving today. So, I've been involved in so many things here, and like I said, I love my job. But when I was a governor, I was a lieutenant governor appointment to the university, actually. So, yeah, so I've had my hands in so many things, been on so many boards here that, yeah, it's incredible. So that's all this stuff, I guess. What the military did for me in a nutshell. It helped me make sure I was disciplined and organized. and planned very well. My civilian career taught me something. I worked for some of the very best CEOs, and they told me about strategy. Taught me a lot about strategy. And you know what? This is a mistake made by 99% of the companies out there, right? Strategy, they figure, is what we're going to do. But you know what strategy really is? You got to think of it differently. Strategy is deciding what you're not going to do, okay? And focusing. And that's the big difference here when I came to the city. When you looked at the strategic priorities, like it was pages, a binder full of them. Well, to my dismay, we did reduce it down to 89, but now this year we're actually going to try to reduce it down to 5 or 6. And it's called, it's Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and that is concentration of force. So if you resource things properly, you put the right funding to it, you concentrate on it, you will succeed. And that I learned that from my commercial life. So and I applied it in my small businesses too. So
That's amazing.
yeah, so it's a story that I tell over and over, and I tell people this right now. And I'm also a director with the Capital Regional District also. So that again is like their strategy is gigantic. It's nuts. And we wonder why our spending runs away from us. It's because we try to be everything to everybody. No, 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 no. It's wrong.
Hmm.
And then we accomplish nothing. And people get frustrated. Taxpayers go, "Where's my value?" Right? So